Is this happening? Are we live? Hi guys, I think I'm live. It's a bit weird in this new Facebook layout, but hey ho. And I just wanted to check in with you lovely ladies in our Facebook group on this Monday. I usually do Monday morning coffees, but my morning was quite nice. I wanted to say busy, but it really wasn't. Really wasn't busy so much as I was out. I went to the beach. Well, first I went to the chiropractor. His office is like, oh, now we're like, I don't know what's happening. This is a very interesting new interface that Facebook has added. So I usually do my Monday morning videos a little bit earlier, but I went to the chiropractor this morning, and then his offices are right next to the beach, so I took the dog, and then after having had my adjustment, I went to the beach and went for a walk. It was a beautiful, gorgeous blue sky, sunshine, super cold, but it was really nice. So it really took me until late afternoon to actually get to my computer and do some work. But I feel like that's fine. I think it's totally allowed to be in this 2020 world, and feel a need to leave the house when the weather is nice. So I did that, and now I'm here and I'm getting some work done and having a coffee and talking to you guys. And the reason why I wanted to check in, um, or what I wanted to talk to you guys about this particular Monday, is the power of stories. And so I've been spending quite some time recently looking through old writing of mine. Um, I co-founded Swan Waters in 2013, which was a platform for survivors of emotional abuse, for healing and support, like peer support and things like that. And we're kind of figuring out how to move forward with that particular organization. And as part of that, I've been reviewing some of the writing that I did. And it's really interesting. Some of this stuff I seriously haven't read for years sometimes. And it's so interesting to see how my understanding, my viewpoints, and it's really just a written record of my own healing journey, right? But it also made me realize how much the stories that I used to be told by my family members impacted how I viewed myself and the world and my place within the world. Um, and it's so interesting when you're looking back at it now, sort of, having come out the other end, and you see these stories and you're thinking, wait, what? Like, oh, I remember that. You know, that that's how I used to feel about myself. It's things like, it's a random example, but works quite well. There's an anecdote that my family would often tell during stories or during parties and family gatherings and things, which was that I was an alcoholic at age 1. And the story goes that when I was 1 years old, I would be butt scooting through the house because I didn't crawl. I butt scooted. Apparently, I do not have any memories of this. But I would go to where my mother kept the recycling and drink the last bits of wine out of the bottles, which is evidence of me being an alcoholic, obviously. The proof of this story is that there's a picture of me as a 1 year old holding a wine bottle, an empty wine bottle, and supposedly I did this all the time. Now, let's just skip over the part where why, as a 1 year old, did I even have access two bottles with leftover bits of wine in it, because that's a rabbit hole that we don't have time for today. But when I do, but as this story got recounted over the years, I obviously started having ideas of what an alcoholic is and what might, and I mean, obviously prejudice ideas about these things, like we all have ideas, preconceived ideas of what would make someone an alcoholic, or what would cause what sort of character flaws someone would have in order to get to the place where they lack so much self-discipline or self-control. And I know that this is all like, this is not sort of rational, um this isn't rational thought and understanding of what creates addiction, because trauma creates addiction. But there's ideas that we all have, right, in our culture around these kind of topics. And so when you're constantly hear the story about how you were an alcoholic at age 1, that means that at age 1 you were already lacking so much in self control and self discipline, and you were already so lazy and so whatever these ideas are that you're having. But you start applying them to yourself, right? We all understand that this happens, and we everybody has this to some degree in their lives. Obviously, when you grow up with emotional abusers, then probably to a larger extent, but we all do it, and even the nicest parents project some shit onto us sometimes. So if you can if you can understand that that happens in the microcosm, and I was just reminded of how much that happens in the microcosm of me, then we also have to understand that these kind of principles also work for, us within the world, because there's all these stories that are part of our cultural identity that tell us who we're supposed to be or what we are supposed to be. And especially, I think, when we're looking at the stories that are being told about women and about how women are supposed to show up in the world, they are very, I wanted to say interesting, but that's not really the word. That's not really the word. But it really tells us about how women are, emotional, unstable, hormonal, um, hysterical. Like, there's all these preconceived ideas, right, of what women are, um, and even like how we're supposed to show up in the world. And I don't just mean in terms of, whether we're supposed to, how we're supposed to dress, or how we're supposed to look, or how we're supposed, whatever, like. But there's all these ideas, and they come out of stories that we've been telling for centuries. I mean, if you even look at, you know Adam and Eve was responsible, solely responsible as a woman, for the fall of mankind, right? I mean, that's a pretty fucking heavy thing to be carrying around as a woman in the world. Even if you don't necessarily, believe these stories or didn't grow up with them, they are part of this sort of social consciousness in our world, right? And then they determine how we then view ourselves in this world. And so if we understand that stories impact how we feel about ourselves, and how we define who we are, and how we define what we are capable of or what we're not capable of, or it becomes the voice of our sort of, our inner critic, and our inner bully, whoever it is that, we're talking to, then I think we also understand that it becomes really important that we start sharing different stories of how we're succeeding, stories of how, yeah, we messed up sometimes, but this is how we overcame, stories of how we decided not to define ourselves by the standards that are set by societies, you know stories of how we decided to change the narrative. And this is really why I am so drawn to helping people tell their stories, because I think the world needs our stories to be told. It needs different viewpoints It needs different different experiences to be highlighted in story, and story is just such an effective way of doing that because it engages us in so many on so many different levels. Like it engages us emotionally, but it also engages intellectually because we have to understand the story, we have to figure it out. We may even make assumptions about where the story is going to go, which means that we're now suddenly, when the story goes somewhere else, we're confronted with those assumptions and we start to question where they came from. So it's such an effective way of challenging how people are currently showing up in the world, how they're defining the world, and sometimes, actually, most times, we're not even aware that we're doing it. And so in me sort of experiencing that and remembering that kind of, oh, this is how it was for me, the stories that I heard about myself growing up fed into how I felt about myself, but also the stories that as a world, as a society, we tell about certain groups inform how those groups feel about themselves. And it's so heartbreaking when we see it happen. And so, yeah, I wanted to just share that, um, that sort of reason for for why I want everybody to tell their stories and why I think it's so important. So I hope that was some good coffee chat for this week, and I'll see you soon again. Bye.